morning, Dan and Amy. Let's talk a little bit about jobs, particularly against the rather depressing news this week that on top of Illinois losing 15,000 manufacturing jobs in 2015, Caterpillar announcing it's closing 5 facilities in the state of Illinois. Caterpillar, kind of a big employer here in a state where agribusiness is the number one sector, kind of an important Fortune 100 manufacturer that is world headquarters is in Peoria, and we'd like to keep it that way. And they seem to be divesting from Illinois. Now they're closing facilities, cutting several hundred jobs. And so the question is, and this is a question Governor Rauner is trying to answer, or at least I think he has some answers. He's trying to move those answers into legislative form. But how do we do a better job of retaining manufacturing jobs, a wealth-creating sector, a force-multiplying sector in a way that the service sector is not to mention attract manufacturers to take advantage of the infrastructure that Chicago has as the transportation hub of the Midwest? These are big questions, and they directly impact our quality of life here in Illinois and the quality of life for people in that sector. And to get answers to these questions and others, we're now joined by Jay Timmons, the head of the National Association of Manufacturers, in town today to give an address this afternoon at Harper College in Palatine on the state of manufacturing in the country and in Illinois in 2016. Jay Timmons, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Dan. How are you doing?
Good. So you know about this. I don't need to tell you the story, but Illinois is a manufacturing hub. It's one of the Rust Belt states that, frankly, has not recovered from the Great Recession like some of our Rust Belt neighbors, and we continue to see the flight of manufacturing jobs out of Illinois to other states. What is Illinois not doing or doing that other states are not to make it less attractive for manufacturers to stay or manufacturers to come?
Well, first of all, I think the perception of manufacturing is one that has to be changed, and we can start by calling it the Jobs Belt instead of the Rust Belt.
Yeah, okay.
Manufacturing really is today. It's such a vital part of our economy, as it has been for decades. But it's very different today than it was in past years and past decades. And manufacturing really is sleek. It's technology driven. It is the future. And what Illinois can do is the same thing other states have been doing, which is creating a better business climate for jobs and investment to thrive. So lower taxes, a sane regulatory system, and a commitment to working with business to really grow jobs instead of looking at them as cash cows or to penalize them for various things that really are out of their control. One of the big issues we've got, Dan, is obviously it's not just states that are competing with each other. We're now competing in a global economy. So Illinois is not just competing with, say, South Carolina, where I was earlier this week. I mean, Illinois is competing with China and Russia and India and Brazil.
Well, right. I mean, we're having trouble keeping up with Indiana before we get to India.
You're right. That's right.
So what tax incentives can we give, certain companies to try and attract them to the state of Illinois? And would our politicians be willing to do that? Because they seem to give, favors to some owners of companies as opposed to manufacturers. So people in the high-tech industry.
I don't want to opine on state legislative solutions because we represent all 50 states. But I can tell you this. What I hear from manufacturers is that they are attracted to investing in states. And remember, these investments are not just multi-year, but multi-decade investments. They're attracted to states and countries where it's more efficient to do business, where the cost of doing business is less. So that means a lower overall statutory tax rate. It doesn't necessarily mean quote unquote incentives. It means lowering the overall tax burden for those businesses. It means making sure that your regulatory system is again working with business to achieve the laudable goals we care about for clean water and clean air and a healthy workplace, but doing it in conjunction with business to achieve those goals. It means a good infrastructure system that is modern and second to none, and it means taking advantage of markets around the world through free trade agreements, free and fair trade agreements.
Well, how do you interpret Caterpillar, frankly, ADM as well, big Fortune 100 companies that are headquartered in Illinois? particularly central and southern Illinois, where jobs are a little bit more difficult to come by than they are in the northeast part of the state. How do you interpret them divesting from Illinois, reducing the number of operating facilities in Illinois, and consequently the employment here? That can't be seen, in my opinion, as just a little bit of retooling, but everything's fine. That's a statement about what they think about Illinois, isn't it?
Well, again, I don't want to second guess the decisions of the heads and leaders of those companies, or presume to know what they were thinking when they made those decisions. But I can say this from a macro standpoint: businesses have to have the capital necessary to invest and to create jobs. And in states, countries where it's more expensive to do business, they have less capital. They have less money to invest and to grow. They have less money for job creation and to ultimately get the final product out the door and to their customers. So I do think that the states that are thriving and the ones that are growing, I'm going to harken back to South Carolina again because I just think it's a shining example. That was an example where you have the leadership of the state, Governor Haley, with a plan much like Governor Rauner, to attract business and jobs and investment into her state. And it was a multi-year effort to right the business environment and to work with local officials and community colleges who were going to provide the training to prospective employees to attract that investment and jobs. They did it with BMW, they did it with Boeing, and not just those two large companies, but all of the suppliers that want to be close to those companies, they also started making investments there.
Yeah, and I mean Boeing, they built that facility not far from the airport in Charleston, and
Right.
I was down there in December, and they were talking about going from 5,000 employees to upwards of maybe 40,000 employees there. I mean, just staggering.
Absolutely. I toured that facility just on Monday and saw the plans for expansion, and it's phenomenal, and it's invigorating and exciting, and that's what manufacturing is all about, right? I mean, we're creating the future, and I think state leaders and state government officials, from the executive to the legislative branch, right down to the county and city governments, those who understand that, those who want to be a part of it, they're making those investments. They're making they're setting those priorities to attract manufacturing into their state borders. As you said, Dan, there is no sector of the economy that's more vibrant. For every $1 invested in manufacturing, another $1.40 of spin-off economic activity occurs. And that's huge. No other sector does that.
But it was one problem with manufacturing jobs, the unions that come along with those jobs.
Not in right-to-work states.
That's the
Look,
thing. That's why
I will say that right-to-work states are obviously thriving in the in the current environment, in the current economy. But I'll say this: we have members. We have 14,000 members in our association. Some of those shops are unionized, some are not, and I see a productive and excited and motivated workforce everywhere I go, whether those workforces are unionized or not, because the folks who are working in manufacturing know what they're contributing to the quality of life, not just for their communities and their families, of course, but for the entire nation. Manufacturing is a strong manufacturing sector is critical to America's economic might and our ability to maintain and to grow American exceptionalism around the world.
We're talking to Jay Timmons, head of the National Association of Manufacturers. And part of this is a difficult conversation for a lot of folks that find themselves in a precarious economic position, maybe out of work even, and had previously worked in the manufacturing sector. And it dovetails with a conversation we're having in the presidential campaign, and as you were talking about competing globally, particularly with China, mentioned most often. And don't we have to be honest about the reality, the other part of the reality of the changing manufacturing sector, which is, there are fewer employees in that sector, but productivity has increased exponentially even as the number of employees has declined. And so, the technological innovation in the manufacturing sector means maybe fewer employees required to be particularly productive and to throw off the kind of wealth that you're describing.
At a specific plant, that may be true, but I actually I reject the notion that as we advance in manufacturing and we increase productivity, it means fewer jobs for individuals. I actually think it means more, and we've shown that over the course of the last few years since the Great Recession. As we get more productive, that means that there is more money, assuming that state and federal policies are right. There's more money to invest in expansion opportunities here in the United States. And when we expand those opportunities, even when we add robotics and other technological advances, we still need people to make sure that those plants and facilities are operating correctly. It's the type of jobs that we're offering in manufacturing that are very different today. There's a lot of white-collar jobs in manufacturing.
Right.
Most people aren't even aware of. But beyond that, the technical skills that are necessary to deal with the robotics, to deal with the programming and some of the other more precise job skills are what we're talking to community colleges and other institutions of higher education, as well as primary and secondary education.
Yeah, let me jump in right there, because is another part of the problem, and I hear this from small to mid-sized manufacturers in the Chicago metro area, is, I mean, we've got good-paying jobs here. People can make a very nice living working in a manufacturing facility, but you make it with your brains these days, not just your brawn, and we don't have a supply for the demand we have of labor.
That's exactly right. This is something, all of these issues we've talked about, we work very closely with the Illinois Manufacturers Association. Greg Bays is the president and CEO there. But one of the issues we work most closely with IMA on is workforce development. It's one of the reasons I'm going to Palatine High School later today, and I'm going to get an overview of the engineering and other pathways of study there for manufacturing. And then I'm going to be going to Harper College to their advanced manufacturing lab to talk about those jobs of the future. And those jobs of the future are available today. Those jobs are going to continue to change. We understand as a manufacturing sector that our workforce is going to go through a continual evolution. We've got to be able to adapt to the changing economic environment. We've got to adapt to new technologies, and we have to invest in training our workforce for those job skills of the future. But we also have to make sure that young people and their parents understand what incredible opportunities exist in manufacturing, where the starting salary and lifetime salary is about 1.5 times more than the salaries of salaries in other sectors.
All right. He is Jay Timmons, the president and CEO of the National Association of Manufacturers, in town to address folks at Harper College this afternoon as part of his tour. Jay Timmons, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me here today, and I'm looking forward to a great day here in Illinois.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is the